Sirens slice through the Texas night. Flashing lights. Police tape in the wind. A mother's body lies half hidden behind a tire shop, silent witness to a killing that should never have happened. How did violence born beyond the border end here in the heart of Austin? By dawn, detectives swarm the wooded lot. The victim is identified as Mary Gonzalez, 43, a neighbor, a friend, a working mother. Her body bears a single gunshot wound. The Travis County Medical Examiner confirms homicide. Shock ripples through the city, not just for the brutality, but for who police say pulled the trigger. Enrique Gomez Urbina, 21, a Mexican national, now stands accused of first-degree murder. The Lone Star Fugitive Task Force tracks him down within hours. When officers stop his car, they find open beer bottles, a Glock pistol, and ammunition, all eerily matching evidence left behind the tire shop. The Modelo bottles, the spent casing, every detail locks like gears in a machine built on cause and consequence. This was no random act. Surveillance cameras show a vehicle matching his parked near the scene. Traffic cameras confirm the route. The pattern is unmistakable method, not chaos. As police piece the timeline together, the public's unease deepens. A city already strained by debates over border enforcement and local cooperation with ICE now faces a case that embodies those tensions in flesh and blood. Investigators move fast. The evidence trail tightens the gun, the ammunition, the video. Prosecutors prepare for a high-profile trial, but behind the headlines lies a question that burns through the heart of Texas and the nation. How did a 21-year-old from Mexico with ties to fugitives wanted abroad walk freely through American neighborhoods? In the Trump era, the answer is more than political, it's existential. The administration has doubled down on security enforcement fusing ICE with state fugitive units and promising no safe haven for criminal aliens. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem calls it a return to deterrence. But deterrence means little when the system fails before the crime. This case isn't just about one man or one murder. It's about trust between local police and federal agents, between communities, and the state between law and the borders meant to uphold it. Every inch of police tape across that Austin crime scene is a line drawn between tragedy and policy. And yet the deeper question lingers in the air like gunpowder after a shot. Can America ever truly be safe when the path from border to neighborhood remains so open and so easily crossed? The investigation deepens. Every fragment of the Austin crime scene, every footprint bottle and bullet casing becomes a piece in a forensic jigsaw that leads detectives straight to Enrique Gomez Urbina. At a traffic stop just a mile from the tire shop, officers open the suspect's vehicle. Inside half-empty beer bottles, the smell of alcohol, and a Glock pistol resting under the seat. The ammunition, same brand, same caliber, matches the shell casing recovered near Mary Gonzalez's body. For investigators, it's the turning point. But what shocks the public isn't just the evidence, it's what Gomez Urbina's arrest reveals. His name triggers an immigration alert. ICE confirms he's in the country illegally. Within hours, a federal detainer is issued. That's when the story breaks open. Two men linked to Gomez Urbina are discovered hiding in Central Texas. Jesus Yanez, 48, is wanted in Mexico for weapons trafficking. Javier Roman Hernandez entered the U.S. through the CBP-1 app, a legal entry program designed to manage border crossings, but now under fierce scrutiny. Both men are taken into custody awaiting extradition to Mexico. Reuters and BBC coverage highlights the geopolitical ripple. The murder becomes a lightning rod for debate over border policy and vetting failures. The Guardian describes the case as a collision between humanitarian intent and security negligence. DW notes that the extradition process exposes a chronic gap in intelligence sharing between US and Mexican authorities. Inside Washington, the Trump administration wastes no time. Homeland Security reinforces its stance public safety first. Zero tolerance for criminal aliens. The president orders a full review of CBP-1 operations, demanding biometric verification and faster cross-agency database checks. ICE, U.S. Marshals, and Texas Rangers form a unified command structure to track fugitives with transnational links. Yet while Washington reacts, Austin trembles. Locals gather outside the tire shop, holding candles in paper cups, whispering about the system that failed Mary. Talk radio explodes with anger. How could men with such backgrounds slip through layers of supposed security? The forensic chain grows tighter. Ballistic experts from the Texas Department of Public Safety confirm the Glock's firing pin matches the cartridge found at the scene. Gunshot residue tests trace particles to Gomez Urbina's hands. Surveillance video from a nearby gas station shows him buying beer just hours before the murder. Still, the defense prepares its counterattack, questioning probable cause, disputing the timeline, and hinting that another person might have used the vehicle. But the public focus has already shifted beyond guilt or innocence towards something systemic. As BBC analysts note, this is no longer just a homicide case. It's a referendum on America's border enforcement credibility. Federal task forces begin mapping Gomez Urbina's digital trail, encrypted messages, money transfers, and contacts stretching across the Rio Grande. Intelligence reports suggest ties to a small criminal syndicate moving weapons and narcotics between Tamaulipas and Texas. Nothing is confirmed, but the optics are enough to reignite calls for stricter screening and immediate deportation for any foreign national with a criminal link. The message from Austin's mayor echoes national frustration. We can't protect our communities if the left hand of policy doesn't know what the right hand of law enforcement is doing. The question grows louder, crossing state lines. If the trail of a single gun and a single app can lead to a woman's death, what other dangers still hide in plain sight? The investigation now stretches beyond Texas. What began as a local homicide spirals into a cross-border manhunt. ICE agents, U.S. Marshals, and Mexican authorities coordinate under the Trump administration's Operation Safeline, a renewed fusion directive targeting violent offenders who entered through humanitarian or parole pathways. As details emerge, the public learns that Jesus Lamas Yanes Gomez Urbina's associate isn't just wanted for a weapons violation in Mexico. Reuters confirms he was a suspected intermediary in a small arms ring moving components from Texas to northern Mexico, fragments of rifles and ammunition reassembled and resold to local gangs. His arrest reignites a crucial debate: how many criminals slip through under the guise of migrants? The CBP One app, designed as a humanitarian tool, becomes the center of political fire. BBC reports that Hernandez, the second associate, had crossed through the system only 6 months earlier, vetted, processed, and released pending review. Critics now call the app a digital Trojan horse, claiming it allows unverified entries under bureaucratic camouflage. The Department of Homeland Security counters with data showing that over 600,000 processed entries through CBP One have no criminal record, emphasizing that isolated incidents cannot define the policy. But Defense News and Jane's Point to another side national security analysts warn that gaps in biometric integration across agencies allow dangerous individuals to move between jurisdictions before red flags appear. President Trump orders an immediate review of every CBP One applicant with prior international warrants. The order, signed at the White House alongside Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, signals a shift from reactive enforcement to preemptive screening. It's a message intended for both Washington and the border. The age of leniency is over. The tone from Al Jazeera captures the tension perfectly. For the first time, a murder in Austin could redefine America's border doctrine. Meanwhile, ICE field teams in Texas and Arizona begin executing simultaneous sweeps focusing on fugitives with overlapping digital signatures, encrypted IDs, repeated IP hits, and remittance records linked to cartel-controlled accounts. Analysts call this a network bleed, where criminal enterprises exploit legal entry programs for logistics and cover. But even amid the arrests, the human story remains raw. In Austin, residents gather outside City Hall. They hold pictures of Mary Gonzalez and demand accountability. We welcome migrants, one speaker says, but we don't welcome murder. Across social media, images of Gomez Urbina's arrest circulate alongside political commentary. Some see it as proof of failure, others as a test of resolve. DW's European coverage frames it as a mirror of broader Western dilemmas, balancing humanitarian policy with national security. Europe faces the same challenge. One German analyst notes how to remain open yet not blind. Behind closed doors, intelligence officers acknowledge what the public already suspects: cross-border data exchange between US and Mexican agencies is still too slow. Arrest warrants filed in Mexico often take weeks to flag in US systems. That delay can be fatal. As the extradition process begins, the story evolves from tragedy to test case, a moment that may determine how future entries are screened, tracked, and verified. And yet, amid all the politics and protocol, one haunting truth remains. It took a woman's death behind a tire shop to expose how fragile the line between compassion and chaos can be. By the time Washington awakens to the scale of the scandal, the Austin case has become the loudest echo of a national argument: security versus compassion. Cable networks run the footage in loops: the flickering police lights, the tire shop in shadow, the suspect in cuffs. Reuters headlines call it a case that redraws the border debate. For the White House, it's more than an investigation, it's a symbol. President Donald Trump, addressing reporters in the East Room, declares, "No more excuses, no more loopholes. America will not tolerate violent offenders walking our streets under the flag of compassion." Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem follows with an order immediate suspension of discretionary parole under the CBP One app until a full audit is complete. ICE is directed to coordinate with U.S. Marshals and state police to locate and detain any migrants flagged with criminal or extradition history. The tone is firm, the optics deliberate. CNN, BBC, and The Guardian frame it as the moment immigration policy turns ironclad. DW adds a European context. Germany itself, after multiple high-profile crimes by asylum seekers, faces identical public outrage and political pressure. The Austin case notes DW's Berlin bureau is America's mirror to Europe's refugee dilemma, how compassion collides with control. At the heart of this storm is the CBP One app, once a humanitarian innovation, now a lightning rod. Al Jazeera reports that Latin American migrants waiting in Mexico feel betrayed and trapped, fearing mass cancellations of their applications. Critics from human rights groups call the administration's new stance collective punishment. Yet polls by Pew Research and Gallup show a sharp rise in public demand for tighter entry screening, especially after news that one suspect in the Austin case was already wanted in Mexico. In Texas, law enforcement morale hardens. The state's fusion centers launch Project Border Trace, linking license plate readers, facial recognition cameras, and biometric databases from ICE to local sheriff's offices. It's a direct response to what the Texas Tribune calls the perfect storm of system failures. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, lawmakers clash. Republican senators praise Trump's crackdown as restoring American order. Democrats warn of fear-driven overreach. But on both sides, there's acknowledgement that the Austin case has rewritten political reality. Border management is no longer a bureaucratic issue, but a public safety emergency. International observers take note. Jane's Defense Weekly reports that U.S. Customs and Border Protection will deploy AI-assisted watchlist synchronization across 5 southern states, fusing federal, state, and foreign intelligence to flag suspects in real time. It's Homeland Security's version of network-centric warfare, one analyst says. The battlefield isn't abroad, it's administrative. And yet, while Washington retools its border apparatus, Mary Gonzalez's family mourns quietly in Austin. The political noise fades at her vigil. Her daughter lights a candle. Her son stands silent, holding her picture. Between the speeches, a local pastor asks a question that resonates beyond the state line. If justice requires order and compassion requires mercy, where do we draw the line when one life already paid the price? As America tightens its borders under Trump's directive, the moral divide deepens. Is the nation safer or simply harder? The courtroom becomes the next battleground. After the raids, the rhetoric, and the political firestorm, the real test shifts to proof. Prosecutors know that headlines can't convict, evidence can. Inside Travis County's courthouse, the murder trial of Enrique Gomez Urbina opens to packed rows of reporters. The district attorney presents a meticulous reconstruction cell phone geolocation, placing the suspect near the crime scene, gunshot residue on his hands, and security footage from 3 separate locations showing his car before and after the time of death. The Glock pistol is the linchpin. Forensic specialists from the Texas Department of Public Safety testify that the weapon's firing pin marks and rifling patterns match the shell casing found beside Mary Gonzalez's body. Gunpowder particles from his shirt collar confirm a close-range discharge. Defense attorneys strike back hard. They question the chain of custody, arguing that the car search may have violated protocol. They claim someone else could have driven the vehicle that night. They hint that the gun, though found in Gomez Urbina's car, may not have been his. Reuters legal analysts call the strategy classic reasonable doubt, by fragmentation breaking the timeline into so many uncertainties that the narrative collapses. But prosecutors counter with what The Guardian terms forensic inevitability. Every element, the casing, the gun, the residue, the Modelo beer bottles, converges on one undeniable conclusion: he was there. Beyond the legal drama, the stakes stretch far wider. Homeland Security officials watch closely, aware that the case's outcome could define how future detainers are enforced. According to DW's reporting, ICE and the U.S. Marshals Service are already drafting a rapid extradition framework to prevent suspects with international warrants from disappearing between jurisdictions. Defense News notes another dimension: forensic innovation. The Department of Justice introduces an AI-driven digital chain pilot, a real-time evidence management system linking local police labs to federal oversight. It's designed to prevent exactly the type of procedural gaps the defense is now exploiting. But while policy experts talk technology, the jury hears tragedy. The prosecution's closing statement isn't about politics, it's about consequence. Mary Gonzalez was a mother, not a headline, the lead prosecutor says. She was murdered because the system blinked when it should have been watching. Outside, protesters line the courthouse steps. On one side, placards read, "Secure our borders." On the other, "Justice without prejudice." The clash mirrors America's internal struggle, the pursuit of safety without surrendering humanity. BBC commentators compare it to Europe's post-crisis trials moments when one criminal act forces entire nations to rethink freedom and control. The Austin case, a BBC anchor observes, is not just about guilt or innocence. It's about the kind of country America chooses to be. As closing arguments end, silence fills the room. The jury deliberates. Cameras wait. Outside, ICE vehicles idle in the parking lot, ready to transfer Gomez Urbina into federal custody should he be convicted. In that silence, one thought reverberates through the courthouse walls and across the nation, watching when the balance between justice and security hangs on a single verdict: who truly stands trial, the killer or the system that let him in. The verdict lands like a thunderclap across Austin. Guilty, first-degree murder, life in prison without parole. The courtroom exhales, but the air outside still burns with questions no sentence can answer. For Mary Gonzalez's family, the ruling brings a measure of closure, but no peace. Candles still flicker along the tire shop fence, and flowers wilt under the Texas sun. The crowd at her vigil grows each week, not out of curiosity, but conviction. Texans are no longer just mourning, they are demanding change. Reuters calls it a political aftershock disguised as a local crime, because while Gomez Urbina faces justice, the failures that allowed his presence remain unresolved. His associate Jesus Llamas Yanez is extradited to Mexico within days. The second man, Javier Roman Hernandez, faces federal detention under the reformed CBP-1 audit, a direct response to the murder that triggered a national overhaul. President Trump, addressing the nation from the Oval Office, announces the Homeland Accountability Act, introducing biometric cross-checks across every entry platform and mandating real-time warrant sharing with foreign governments. Every law-abiding family deserves to live free from fear, he declares. Every life lost to bureaucracy is one too many. Under this directive, ICE and U.S. Marshals expand joint task forces across the border states. Al Jazeera reports that more than 2,000 high-risk cases are already under review. Jane's Defense Weekly highlights new technology investments, AI behavioral screening, encrypted travel logs, and satellite-linked mobile units scanning for fugitives in transit zones. But policy cannot heal grief. Outside St. Mary's Church, Gonzalez's daughter whispers to a journalist from The Guardian, "All we wanted was safety, not politics, just safety." The human impact cuts through the noise. Families of victims gather to share stories of crimes tied to immigration lapses, not to divide, but to demand accountability. In Austin, Safeline, Texas becomes more than a task force name. It becomes a movement. Volunteers organize neighborhood watch networks, combining law enforcement coordination with community outreach. DW notes that Germany is watching closely its own experience with violent crimes by foreign fugitives led to similar reforms years earlier. What America now faces, the report concludes, is the lesson Europe already learned: compassion without verification is vulnerability. Back in Washington, the Justice Department releases early results: a 42% increase in warrant detection rates across ICE-linked systems, faster extradition approvals, and a measurable drop in transnational fugitive cases. Yet analysts from BBC and Defense News warn that the challenge ahead is philosophical, not technical. How far can America tighten its borders before it strangles the very freedom it claims to defend? At the heart of it all stands one quiet image: a woman's memorial behind a tire shop surrounded by the soft glow of candles. A small sign reads, "Never again." The nation watches, divided yet determined. Every reform, every audit, every law now carries her shadow. And as the headlines fade, one question lingers raw and unanswerable. When the next tragedy comes, and history suggests it will America be ready, or will it mourn again under the same broken light? The murder of Mary Gonzalez behind a tire shop in Austin becomes the epicenter of a national reckoning over border control and public safety. The suspect, Enrique Gomez Urbina, an illegal immigrant from Mexico, is arrested after forensic evidence, a Glock matching ammo, and surveillance footage ties him to the crime. Two associates, one wanted in Mexico for weapons trafficking, and another who entered the U.S. via the CBP-1 app, exposed the system's critical flaws. Under President Donald Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi know them, the case triggers sweeping reforms from biometric vetting to the Homeland Accountability Act, transforming federal cooperation and extradition policy. ICE, U.S. Marshals, and Texas law enforcement launch Operation Safeline, targeting violent offenders nationwide. Yet amid the political firestorm, Mary's death becomes more than a case. It's a mirror reflecting America's struggle to balance security and compassion. The tragedy forces a question that haunts every policymaker and citizen alike: can a free nation remain open and still stay